Hi, welcome back to Long Island Naturally. If you're having trouble coping with stress, you may be suffering from adrenal fatigue. My guest is Dr. Garry He's an expert in adrenal health who draws on his experience as a chiropractor, licensed clinical social worker, nutritionist, and homeopath to help his patients heal. So Dr. DeGabrandt, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me here.
The thing I don't understand is if our adrenals are there to help us cope with stress, why does stress cause them to burn out?
Well, I think it's a matter of how much stress and how continual the stress is. We were never really designed to have stress all the time, and we're leading lives now of almost continual stress 24/7.
Right, that's true. So why should we care though if our adrenals are fatigued? What are some of the things that it affects? I understand blood sugar levels is one of those things.
Absolutely. The adrenal glands and the hormones they produce literally affect every cell in our bodies. So we might see things with depression, we might see fatigue, a really bone-weary kind of fatigue, though, where the person has a hard time really raising their head up in the morning. We might see headaches or inflammatory patterns. We could see people with low sex drives, some problems with their skin, blood sugar regulation. All of those things fall well within the purview of adrenal fatigue.
So that may be one of the reasons why people are constantly looking for some kind of sugary snack, because their energy is low and because they're stressed, right?
Absolutely.
The thing that interested me was that I know the adrenals help maintain a pregnancy, but I also realize that's probably the reason why so many women are having trouble getting pregnant in the first place, that so many women are stressed, and then they're stressed about the fact that they're not getting pregnant.
Right. Stress does tend to build on itself and really propel people even further down the stress rabbit hole, so to speak. So if you're having trouble conceiving because your hormones are out of balance, your stress hormones are out of balance, it's going to make you more worried and more upset about it even than you were before. That's going to cascade into problems with other hormones, because the adrenals are always working with the rest of the system to make everybody work well. It's a continual feedback loop.
Well, that explains why when women adopt, they end up getting pregnant, because they're no longer stressed about having a baby, right?
Yeah, it takes all of the issue off the table.
Oh my goodness, crazy, crazy. So many people with adrenal fatigue complain for years about what they call chronic fatigue. We had one of your patients is like that. I understand that modern medicine doesn't even recognize this as a syndrome. How can that be?
Well, think about even the title, chronic fatigue syndrome. You're talking about something that's been around, chronic fatigue, tiredness syndrome. It doesn't really say anything that the person already doesn't know about themselves. So I think it's modern medicine's sort of attempt to give it a title, but without any real body to it or any real substance to it. So there's nothing for them to respond with it with. So it just sort of falls by the wayside and often gets overlooked, or just maybe it's something in the person's head or something like that.
Right. And you're diagnosing these people as having adrenal fatigue.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
I have a graphic showing what some of the signs of adrenal fatigue are. I know you've mentioned a few already. Trouble waking up in the morning, fatigue and weakness, cravings for foods high in salt, sugar, or fat. Now, I know I've experienced that. A suppressed immune system, increased allergies. It seems like everybody has allergies these days. Muscle and bone loss and muscular weakness, depression and poor memory, skin problems, low sex drive, which you just mentioned, and hormonal imbalances. And here's a clear sign for sure, lightheadedness when getting up from sitting or lying down. And it seems, despite this, it seems like so many patients are diagnosed with low thyroid, and for some reason, no one is even checking their adrenals. What's going on?
Well, I don't think the adrenals are sexy. I mean, I just don't think they have a lot of juice to them when we're looking at things. They're sitting tucked on top of the kidneys, deep inside the body. You can't touch them, you can't see them. It's a lot easier to go to the thyroid and be looking at the thyroid or being able to touch the thyroid. And let's also look at the fact that pharmaceutically, there are drugs that can respond to the thyroid. The adrenals have such a profound influence on everything in the body. There's no one drug that you could give to the adrenals to actually rejuvenate them or bring them back.
So there's no one drug. So that would certainly make a difference in why doctors aren't able to or aren't looking for it, because there's no solution.
Again, because of the vast array of things that it does, there isn't. It's impossible to have one solution for
right.
something
There's
that
no
affects
one
everything
solution.
else.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Okay. So there really is no standard test. But do you find that people who have adrenal problems also generally have thyroid problems?
Yes. It's a very common thing for people to walk into my office and have been diagnosed with a thyroid problem it's not necessarily they don't have a thyroid problem. It may not be their primary problem. It might be secondary to their adrenal glands. But this is a feedback loop, as I mentioned before. It's always talking to itself. The hypothalamus, the pituitary, the adrenals, the thyroid, they're always in communication. So they're going to affect one another. And yes, it absolutely could be that they have thyroid problems.
Is there any way for a layperson like me to know if my problem is my thyroid or my adrenals?
There are things you can do. There are tests you can do. Saliva tests are preferably the way that I would go about looking for it, because they give you more information and more specific information about what the function of the adrenal glands are. You can definitely do that instead of a blood test, because in my mind it's a much better bet to do that.
But do most physicians use saliva tests?
No, it's not a well-recognized test. In fact, for the most part, you have to go outside of New York to even get a lab that does them. But it is still the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. There are two reasons. One is that it gives us a daily picture, because you're taking 4 samples of saliva during the day, so you get an actual image of the curve of the hormones that are happening in the body. And the other is that the unbound portion of the hormones, they're bound and unbound, those are the ones that are biologically active. That's what's picked up in a saliva test. That's only 3 to 5% of your hormones, but blood completely doesn't get that.
I took that saliva test, and what it showed was that my cortisol level was high at night, when it's not supposed to be, correct?
That's right. The normal, as I just showed you, the normal curve.
Right, exactly.
The normal curve is
And
to
that's,
lower.
guess why? Because I was doing work at night,
Yes.
you know, sitting on the computer, working, and I realized that was not a good idea, so I try very hard to not do that.
We just have to get the rest of the world to follow along with that example.
You showed me an interesting way to stimulate my adrenals, which was, I think you said 2 inches above the belly button, right?
Yes.
And then any 2 fingers 2 inches apart.
Right.
And to rub,
Yes.
right? And how long should I rub for?
About a minute. You're
Okay.
going to definitely notice if your adrenals, this is a reflex point on the outside of the body, you're going to notice if your adrenals are sore, the reflex point's going to be active. It's going to either itchy, sore, or tingly a little bit. And when you rub it, it's going to get a little worse as you actually do the rubbing.
The feeling of soreness, you
Yes.
mean? Oh, okay. Well, my experience was after I did it, I felt more energized because I happened to feel very tired that day you were showing me.
Yeah,
I thought that was very interesting.
It picks people up. It's not a cure for the adrenals, but it's an absolute thing you can do on a moment's notice to sort of bring yourself back online, so to speak.
So is that kind of a way to know that your adrenals are an issue, if indeed doing that little exercise makes you feel better?
Yeah, it's not diagnostic, but it's certainly
Okay.
usable for everybody on a daily basis. It doesn't cost you a dime, and you can rub your own adrenals and sort of make them wake up a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. Now, one of the things that you always recommend, excuse me, to patients is that they go to bed earlier. Now, we know everybody has trouble with that.
Yes, we do.
And you suggest between 10 and 10:30 to make yourself get in bed by 10 or 10:30, right?
Absolutely.
Why is that so important?
Well, we have a circadian rhythm. We have a rhythm that has us be up when the sun comes up so that we're active. Our cortisol levels are highest then, and as we move through the day, we're supposed to basically be coming to rest when cortisol comes down and the sun comes down. When we go to sleep at 10 o'clock, the most physical regeneration in the body, regeneration, rebuilding, repairing, happens between 10 and 2 in the morning. If you're pushing through, which is very endemic of people with a lot of adrenal stress, and going past when you're tired and staying up till 12, 1 o'clock, what happens to the time that you're physically regenerating in sleep? It's not there. And that's really a drawback, and it'll only increase the adrenal deficit that's already there. So we really want to commit to going to bed earlier, because it's when we repair ourselves.
But it's difficult for people who are stressed or they're pumping that adrenaline to relax and get ready for bed. And you suggest certain things that people do, right, to sort of calm down, slow themselves down. What are some of those things?
Absolutely. Staying off of TV before we go to bed.
At least really exciting TV.
At least really exciting,
Action movies.
stimulatory. Right.
Right,
It
right.
activates a different part of our brain. We're wanting to go into a restful period, so listening to really gentle music or music that helps you relax is really wonderful. It's not eating for 2 to 3 hours before we go to bed, again, because digestion is not the same thing as getting ready to rest. I happen to love one which is going outside for 5 minutes and taking a nighttime walk. What does it do?
Sounds like a good idea.
You may have to bundle up, but we're going outside and it's dark. And darkness tells our body that we're supposed to be in a quieter time. It's an amazing tonic for helping people sleep better.
And at this time of year, we're actually supposed to be getting more sleep, certainly in the winter time, than we are in the summer.
Yes, from that evolutionary standpoint, we're supposed to be hibernating a little bit more.
Right. People don't seem to understand that. That's the point of winter. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. We're not in touch with our daily rhythms particularly, and just look at our houses. They're lit up like Christmas trees 24/7, and we're not really tuning out and turning off everything so that we get into a state ready to rest.
Right.
And it is a state. It's definitely a relaxation place that we have to achieve.
Okay, we're going to take a break, but we'll be back with more of Dr. DeBrandt's suggestions for revitalizing the adrenals, so please stay tuned.